Okay. So just before we begin, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners. So QUT acknowledges the Turrbal and Yagara as the First Nations owners of the lands where QUT now stands. We pay respect to their elders, laws, customs, and creation spirits. We recognise that these lands have always been places of teaching, research, and learning. And QUT acknowledges the important role Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people play within the QUT community. So just as an introduction, I'm Tom and I work in student services here at QUT. And I'll be just sort of going through all the sorts of things that you'll need to know ahead of heading over to Australia and get started at QUT. So things like accommodation, what to pack, what to do when you arrive, and getting started at QUT. And towards the end, we'll have a little Q&A session and we'll have a few other people from student services joining us. We'll have Andy and Leo to help you out with some of these questions as well. So that'll all be right towards the end. I'll let you know when we get to it and you can start putting questions in the chat after the presentation. So in terms of what we're going through today, I'll be discussing a few things about planning your travel, if you haven't done this already. What happens when you arrive in Brisbane, what to do once you're living in Brisbane, and things like accommodation and getting that all set up. And then I'll talk a little bit about life on campus and everything available to you at QUT, including all the support services that you may need to access. So welcome to Brisbane. Sorry, 1 second. Just got to get the slides right. So Brisbane has been voted the 10th most livable city in the world. It's a beautiful city. It has 283 days of sunshine per year. So that's quite a lot. It's very nice, especially in winter. There's plenty of opportunities for students to get outdoors and explore the student-friendly lifestyle Brisbane has to offer. It's a very multicultural and diverse population of 2.6 million people. And Brisbane is a community that welcomes international students. Brisbane also has no shortage of dining options, nightlife, entertainment, sporting events, and cultural activities. And the convenient public transport system makes it easy to travel around the city and further afield. It's also easy to stay connected with free Wi-Fi hotspots located throughout the city. If you're looking to spend your weekends outdoors or need a break from your study, there's a Golden Sunshine Coast, quite accessible, fairly close. They have some of the world's best beaches and rainforests and things like that. So yeah, they're a perfect spot to visit for going to the beach and having hikes and day trips and things like that. So I'll just quickly go through the two campuses at QUT. So the first one is Gardens Point campus. And so if you're studying things like business, design, engineering, health, information technology, justice, law, maths and science, and urban development, you'll be stationed at this campus. Gardens Point has the Science and Engineering Centre, which is known for the Cube, which is one of the largest and most advanced interactive learning and digital spaces. There are plenty of eating options at Gardens Point campus too. There's a food court, there's cafes and bars, and Brisbane City is only a short walk away. There are plenty of ways to keep fit on campus as well. There's an indoor aquatic centre, a gym, a cycle centre. And Gardens Point is also bordered by the City Botanic Gardens. It has a lot of riverside paths and bikeways which surround the campus. And you can cross a river to South Bank as well. So it's very accessible. It's close to everything you'll need right in the city. So yes, that's a big plus. There's also Kelvin Grove campus. So if you're studying things like creative industries, education, health, or if you're part of QUT College, you'll be spending your time at Kelvin Grove campus. Kelvin Grove campus is about 3 kilometres from the Brisbane CBD. It's located in the Kelvin Grove village, which there's a lot of shops, restaurants, there's a weekly market, there's residential units around pretty close. There's parklands, there's fitness facilities, and there's a lot of dynamic art and performance spaces at QUT's creative industries precinct as well. So yeah, again, fairly central and a lot going on pretty close to the campus. Kelvin Grove is also home to QUT's state-of-the-art education precinct, which provides technology-equipped teaching spaces. There are many hot food and drink options at Kelvin Grove campus, including cafes, a juice bar, and sushi. There's more cafes, restaurants, and bars around, plus a supermarket, pharmacy, bakeries, and more, all down the road at the Kelvin Grove Village. So yeah, again, there's quite a lot there. It's fairly central and there's quite a lot to do. But regardless of which campus you're at, both of them have a friendly atmosphere and you're sure to enjoy exploring all the facilities on offer. But now that you know where you'll be studying, it's time to talk about planning and preparing for your travel to Brisbane. So depending on where you're at with your travel, and I'd imagine since it's pretty close to the start date of the semester that a lot of you probably would have already gone through a lot of these processes, but just in case, I'll go through a few of these background processes that you'll need to do in terms of booking your trip to Brisbane. So firstly, once your acceptance is finalised, QUT will issue you confirmation of enrolment, and this will mean you can apply for your visa through the Department of Home Affairs. Now, the Department of Home Affairs website can tell you what supporting documents you need to complete to accompany your application. And once you've gathered these documents, you can apply for your visa online through the IMI account application system. So secondly, in terms of booking your flights, you can start booking your flight and prepare to travel to Brisbane after the visa application is finished. And we recommend that you arrive about 2 weeks before your course starts, just so that you have enough time to find accommodation and settle in. And in terms of accommodation arrangements, I'll be going through a few more of those in a few slides. So I'll be going through the different types of accommodation and which ones might be best for you. So before you arrive, you can also book a QUT airport reception pickup. And again, I'll be going through this in a later slide as well. So these are sort of the main things to do before you plan your travel. But yeah, I'd imagine a lot of people here have gone through most of these processes. So again, if you haven't traveled over to Brisbane yet, we have a few suggestions in terms of what to pack. So a few of the basics like casual clothes, some more formal clothes for work and formal events that you might attend. Obviously bring your medications and prescriptions, including a medical record and relevant doctor's letters that you may need. And we recommend bringing your laptop, phone, tablet, and other electronics, obviously with chargers and adapters that you'll need for your studies. And finally, it's good to pack some masks as well. They're fairly easy to buy over here, but we still have mask requirements for a lot of indoor places, especially things like public transport. So it's useful to have a few on hand. Okay, in terms of what not to pack, so once you arrive, you'll have to fill out your incoming passenger card, and there are a number of things that you'll need to declare if you have them. So this includes food, plant material, wooden items, animal products, and footwear or equipment with soil on them. So we recommend not bringing these things if possible. Otherwise, you'll have to declare them, and you can be penalised with a fine if you fail to declare some of these items. So that's something that's worth keeping in mind to be sure that you are prepared for this. So in terms of preparing to travel, there are a number of steps to go through. You'll need to have a valid passport, approved student visa. You'll need to have your flights booked to travel to Brisbane. There's also an airport reception booking confirmation and receipt that you'll need to have. And finally, there's a number of pieces of identification to travel. That includes your driver's license, your national ID, and a proof of full vaccination certificate. And it's important that you have all of these things in English before you travel as well. And finally, we have a few links on the slides. Slides will be sent through shortly after the session, so you'll have access to all of these things, but we'll have an online guide with a list of everything that you'll need to avoid fines, and also some COVID-19 vaccine information in terms of student arrivals. So you'll be able to keep up to date with these things on these links. So upon arrival in Brisbane, there's a few things here to go through and to keep in mind. So to support your arrival into Brisbane, as I mentioned before, QUT does offer a free 24-hour reception service for all international students traveling to Brisbane for the first time. So this means there'll be a friendly endorsed driver waiting for you at the airport when you arrive to take you directly to your pre-arranged accommodation. And if you have family, friends, or relatives with you, they're also welcome for an additional cost of $15 per person that'll need to be paid to the transport company directly when you arrive. And finally, before you make your final booking, just make sure that you have temporary or permanent accommodation ready in Brisbane and book at least 3 days before your planned arrival. We think it's important to have sort of temporary accommodation, just so you have a bit of time to check out a few places and book your sort of more permanent accommodation afterwards. And I'll go through this a bit shortly. So in terms of what happens when you finally land in Brisbane, as mentioned, you'll be asked to complete an incoming passenger card. We'll provide a link for that shortly. And students with valid visas who are fully vaccinated with TGA approved or recognised vaccination can enter Queensland with no quarantine required. And so as of 30th of June, so quite recently, international students are no longer required to take a COVID-19 test on arrival, and you won't need to quarantine on arrival either. However, it's recommended that if you get any COVID-19 symptoms, you should get tested. Otherwise, you can refer to the Australian government's fact sheet on the reopening of international travel to students and the Queensland Government International Arrivals website for more information. These are both on the slides, and as I said, we'll be sharing them with you later on. For the latest government travel advice, there's also a Study Australia link down there. It'll just have everything you'll need in terms of, updates on traveling to Australia and any restrictions. So just to talk a bit about money and I suppose just what's recommended to keep on you and have ready for things like rent and meals and public transport. We have a bit of a guide there on the slides. This is sort of a rough estimate of the average amount of money that you'll need per week for all of these things. So as you can see, rent is it varies quite a lot from like about $220 to $450 a week. And then you can see with food, public transport, utilities and things like that, it all adds up quite a bit. So we recommend initially to carry about $250 of cash for use on arrival, things like emergencies and anything you'll need to immediately purchase. And we also recommend to allow for about $2,000 to $3,000. This will be for setup costs in the first 2 to 3 weeks in Brisbane. It includes a bond of up to 4 weeks rent. So once you find accommodation, you'll need to pay the bond up front for the first 4 weeks of rent. So it is a good idea to have a bit of money left over for that. And then we recommend to have about $500 to $800 per week for living expenses, if possible. The other thing to do is to set up an Australian bank account before or after you arrive. There's more information on these things at the links that we've provided on the slides. So you have a bit of information here about education and living costs in Australia and a few budgeting tools as well from the Money Smart site. So some useful things there that you might want to have a look at afterwards. So in terms of overseas student health cover, so in addition, so all international students must have the overseas student health cover. It's mandated by the Australian government to assist you with meeting the cost of any medical treatment you may require while in Australia. So your health cover must be valid for the duration of your studies. QUT's preferred provider is Medibank. They support over 1/3 of all international students currently studying in Australia. Now, we appreciate that you're all traveling and living in a new place, and With Medibank Overseas Health Cover, you can always reach a Medibank nurse, counselling service, or emergency legal advice 24/7 to answer all health-related questions that you may have. And once I send through the slides, you can take a moment to have a look through some of these important numbers and email addresses to help get you set up with the health cover. So in terms of what the health cover provides, as you can see here, they can provide sort of comprehensive cover in hospital, inpatient medical services, GP consultations, other out of hospital medical services such as blood tests and x-rays, unlimited emergency cover and things like that. And waiting periods may apply, including 12 months wait for pre-existing medical conditions. Okay, so you might be interested in what the process would be if you want to work while studying. So you can work before your course of study commences, and you'll be able to work more than 40 hours a fortnight in any sector of the economy. So these temporary measures remain in place until further notice, and students must ensure they're aware of any changes to visa conditions, including work rights. We do have a useful link here on the slides, the Department of Home Affairs. This has sort of updated conditions, visa conditions for you. So international students have the same work rights as all workers in Australia. You must have an Australian tax file number to work in Australia as well. The link to get a tax file number is included in the slides as well. So yeah, that'll be important to get if you're looking at working here. And finally, as I said, it's very important to check your visa conditions before commencing work. So in terms of accommodation, there's a number of different types of accommodation that you might want to choose. So I'll go through some of these quickly. There's shared accommodation, student complexes, full board residential colleges, and private rentals. So in terms of shared accommodation, this is usually made up of about 2 or more bedrooms in a house or a unit. It has shared facilities. There's a lounge, dining room, bathroom, and kitchen. Bills may be included in the rent, or they might be split between tenants depending on the lease. And the estimated weekly rent for this varies between about $150 to $250 per person. Student complexes are sort of purpose-built student accommodation buildings. It's sort of similar to shared accommodation as in individual rooms or shared units with 2 or more bedrooms. The facilities are shared, although rooms may have their own bathroom. All bills are included, so you don't have to worry as much about that. And the estimated weekly rent is between $220 and $450 per person. In a full board residential college, the main difference from student complexes is that meals are provided to all students. You'll never need to worry about making your own meals that way. If you have a family or a group of friends, private rentals may also be an option for you. These are mainly managed by a real estate agent. It's usually a house or an apartment, and bills are not included in this one. So you'll need to pay them individually. And it doesn't matter in terms of what option you choose. If you have any questions, you can feel free to contact our accommodation team. There'll be an email address for them shortly that we can send through. And we also have on the slides a bunch of information about accommodation in Brisbane from the QUT website. Okay, just to have a few tips for finding long-term accommodation, just a few important things to note. So a tenancy agreement is a legal contract and it's very difficult to break. So it's important to make sure that you're happy with your decision when signing. And we recommend to never pay for or sign an agreement for a rental property you have not seen. So yeah, we think it's important to sort of, if it's possible, to find temporary accommodation and then start looking for more permanent accommodation that you can see for yourself before finding. So apart from that, it is very important to familiarise yourself with tenancy rights and responsibilities. So the RTA, the Residential Tenancy Authority, we have a link to their website in the slides, and they have all sorts of fact sheets in terms of your rights as a tenant and your responsibilities and things like that. Okay, so as mentioned, we have an accommodation services team here at QUT. They're very helpful. They can provide you with assistance with a number of things. They can give you advice, guidance, and resources. They can help you find accommodation that'll suit your needs. They'll provide assistance in understanding your rental agreement. They can provide ongoing support as well as advocacy and mediation where possible. And if you want to make an appointment with someone from the accommodation services team, we have a link below. I might post this in the chat at the moment as well. I'll do that quite shortly. So in terms of living in Brisbane, we have just a few tips. It's good to keep in touch with family and friends if possible. You can download the Brisbane app and explore Brisbane that way. You can take photos, you can get involved at QUT with student clubs and sport. You can come along to social trips and events organised by QUT. So QUT has a number of events also for international students that you can keep track of. There's things like the International Student Newsletter that'll keep you updated with upcoming events. So yeah, if you wanted to get more involved with QUT culture, you can have a look out for those events and also a number of student clubs that arise for all your interests. So for getting around Brisbane, it is quite convenient and there's quite a lot of public transport options around. In terms of getting between campuses, QUT has a free shuttle bus that runs between campuses every 15 minutes during semester. So yeah, every 15 minutes you can just head down to the shuttle bus stop and get a quick trip between campuses. And as a full-time QUT student as well, you get student rates on Brisbane's public transport network. So they're called Go Cards and you can pick them up. And as a student, it's quite a lot cheaper than the adult Go Card. So yeah, make sure that you get the concession fare on that one. And we'll share a few details about that shortly. For all the information on that, you can find it at translink.com.au, which is on the slides as well. Brisbane's also a walking, scooter and bike friendly city. There's plenty of paths to explore, so it's quite convenient to get around. In terms of your safety, Brisbane is generally a very safe city, but just in terms of a few tips around that, for keeping safe in Brisbane, we'd advise just to be aware of your surroundings, never leave valuables unattended, attend the international orientation session. They may have a few more bits of information about this as well. We drive on the left side of the road in Australia, so that's important to keep in mind. And there are numbers for emergency response here as well in terms of the police, ambulance, fire and rescue, and things like that. And for safety around campus, QUT has a security service. There's a free Safe Zone app, which is linked to in the slides. And we have a few numbers here for emergency call phones that are available on campus. So Queensland has quite a high UV rating a lot of the time. It's a pretty intense sun out here. So we do recommend that you prioritize sun and surf safety, especially if you're making trips to the beach and things like that. So we have sort of a slogan here in Australia called slip, slop, slap, seek and slide. And this is to sort of just keep yourself safe from the sun in the summer. So this covers slip-on covering clothing. So just sort of have like long sleeve shirts and things like that when you're out in the sun for a long period of time. Slop on some sunscreen. So SPF 30 or higher, water resistant sunscreen is quite useful. Slap on a hat, seek out a shade and slide on some sunglasses. So sort of just keeping yourself covered and have sunscreen on to, if you're out in the sun for an extended period of time, to keep yourself safe. Okay, so we've spoken a lot about your time in Brisbane and exploring the surrounding areas. Now we'll just give you a few tips and helpful information about life on campus. So the most important thing is to remember that you don't have to do uni alone, and there's a lot of support services out there for you. And our friendly HiQ team are your first port of call for your questions about being a QUT student. So they can be contacted by phone, email and live chat. You can contact them before you leave your home country or when you arrive on campus. And you can visit the friendly student centres on both campuses. So The slide lets you know where the student centres are on both campuses. They're at both libraries. So yeah, if you have sort of questions about many of these things, it can be useful to visit HiQ in person as well. In addition to that, if you have more study plan or sort of faculty-based questions, it can be a good idea to email your faculty. We have all of them listed here. So we have health, science, engineering, business and law, college, HDR. We have ones that cover all of the different units that you might study. So no matter what you're studying, you should be covered by one of these. And yeah, so if you have questions that are sort of based around your study plan and enrolling in units, these are good emails to reach out to. So as mentioned, there's a lot of support services across QUT. A few of these include chaplaincy, there's medical centres, accommodation services, language learning and study support, career support, and counselling, welfare and disability services. So there's quite a lot there, but you can find where to make appointments at the link provided on the slides. There's also student guild support services. They can offer you things like advocacy services, career coaching, legal advice and welfare services as well. There's also the QUT app, which we have a link for in the slides as well. So this can be really helpful for sort of organising upcoming classes, exams and other calendar events. You can put in your current unit enrolment, including course progress and GPA. There are maps there to help you navigate campus. It has the upcoming shuttle bus times. It has messages and QUT notices. You can put in your exam timetables, final grades, and you can also set up a personal profile and virtual bus pass. So it can be quite a useful way of having all the information you need in one spot, and it's very sort of interactive and easy to use. So we would definitely recommend you get the QUT app for that reason. And finally, you can contact us on social media as well. So we have links up here for our Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube pages as well. So this is a good way to sort of keep up to date with what's happening at QUT, events, student services, and things like that. So we're getting very close to our orientation week. So this will be coming up, I believe it's the week after next, from the 18th to 22nd of July. So an important date is 18th of July. This is the main day for international students at orientation. It is actually compulsory for international students to attend the International Students Orientation session during orientation week as well. We have more information about that at the links provided below. It has a sort of links to the events and faculty and course specific sessions. So it's very worthwhile to check out these links and see which information sessions might be relevant to you. You'll have a chance to learn about QUT, your faculty. You can meet the support services. You can learn more about living in Brisbane, and it's always just a good opportunity to meet other students and start getting involved at QUT. Okay, so this concludes the sort of presentation of info for this afternoon. We'll quickly go into the questions. I'll let you know how you can send through questions, but just as a sort of conclusion, as mentioned, Student Services provides support for international students at QUT. The office is available all day, 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, except public holidays, and Student Services email and number is available in the slides as well. And these will be sent through afterwards. Okay,